All right. So today we have a very special guest, Alon, joining us. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. I always enjoy having a catch-up talk with you, Nicole.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. I wanted to start this podcast off with saying first, cheers, happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
But I wanted to do another cheers for you, which is why I made you go get a coffee. Alon is one of my favorite humans, and I legit and you probably already know that. And I wanted all of our listeners to know why. So I did a little bit of homework on, and I wanted to learn what people say about you. And I think what people say about you really can give a perspective on how great of a person you are. So this is going to be a long moment. So I have some quotes among many. So we could sit here all day and talk about how great you are. But so here we go. Alon's passion for his work and his dedication to student learning that he supports is unmatched and infectious.
Aw.
Alon has been a true leader in advancing discussions about the role of work integrated learning in entrepreneurship education. I'm extremely grateful for Alon's help and advice in setting up my courses. I am sure Alon will continue to do great things. And Alon is simply extraordinary as a professor. His dedication and hard work is unmatched, and his genuine concern for student success is evident in everything he does. He's not just teaching, he's making a profound impact on the lives of his students. It's rare to find someone so passionate and committed. Alon is a true gem, and I'm proud to call him a friend for the past 6 years. And that was my quote.
I was gonna say, where did you get these quotes from?
Well, I did some research. So obviously, just for all the listeners here, they can really hear what kind of truly amazing human you are, but also the hard work and dedication that you've put into your teachings and dedication towards students in the last 6 years. So cheers.
Thank you. Thank you.
And who
Flattery
is
doesn't do
Alon?
anything.
Who I might as well tell the listeners who you are. I mean, I'm telling you how great you are, but Alon is the 2023 recipient of the Marshall Botter Chairs in Experiential Learning and Leadership. So he's now in that position. He has successfully had many roles over the past decade, impacting teaching, entrepreneurship, professional development, experiential learning, and work integrated learning. So we have a special guest here today. So thank
Thank
you,
you.
Alon. Now you don't have to talk for the rest of the podcast. I can
I
just
feel
sit
like
here
I
and tell
should
you
I
how
should
great you
keep my
are.
mouth shut, so I don't want to start going downhill from now.
But today is really exciting, and I truly appreciate you taking the time. And where what I was excited about is really my passion towards entrepreneurship, and I know likewise you have a passion towards entrepreneurship, and we know technology is advancing quite quickly. So I'd love to ask my first question to you is from an entrepreneurship standpoint, how do you foresee the nature of student like career paths with students that want to be entrepreneurs changing with all the advancements of AI? Have you had a chance to reflect on that at all, or are you seeing any changes right now?
Okay, that sounds more like two big questions.
Two huge questions.
Yeah, because I'm hearing two things in this question. I guess the first one is, um, how are students coping with
Yeah.
the emerging of the emerging reality of AI in anything that we currently do?
Yeah.
Um, and the second piece was, what does it mean from an entrepreneurship point of view?
Yes.
Um, okay, so well, let's start with AI. Um, and I usually hesitate using AI. I prefer using machine learning because I don't
Great.
think we reached the AI benchmark just yet, but it's a
Perfect.
good buzzword. Uh,
Awesome.
so
Machine
so
learning.
machine learning, yeah. I mean, I'm a pedagogue, so I'm obsessed with always thinking about, what I'm teaching, how I'm teaching, why does it matter, and how it's evolving. Um, And really, when it comes to machine learning, the thing that I ask myself and my students is, how is it changing the way we learn and the way we think we're expected to learn? And if I go back to days of me being an undergrad myself, way back so many years ago, it was relatively straightforward. All your exams are paper-based, all your notes are paper-based. We didn't even have learning management system, right? There was no LMS. Everything was in a textbook. If it's not written on the board, it doesn't exist. And everything has to be written, right? Individually. And I think even the spell checks were bad.
Yep.
They were bad. Right? Like your and your with the
Yes.
E, without the E, right? I mean, just these simple things. And now with machine learning, the auto spell check is so much better. It doesn't just tell you it's the right correct words from a spelling, but from a grammar point of view. It highlights you're missing a comma, punctuation, right? There are so many of the little details that they're not invisible, but we just take it for granted at this point.
Yeah.
And so with machine learning and generative AI, we're really just upping the game in so much more than anything in probably the last 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
And so education has always been about learning, higher education, I guess, university education, higher education, was mostly split into two worlds. We have the trades, the applied, the skill-based professions, and then we had everything else, which more about the thinking, right? Let's say in the US, it's referred to as the liberal arts, but
Yeah.
even in chemistry, you can be trained to be a chemist technician working at the bench, or you can be a chemistry PhD, which is mostly about the ability to think creatively.
Right.
And so to me, the purpose of education hasn't changed. If you're being trained for a profession with certain skills, you're learning the basic skills, and that's where usually you have the cutting edge technologies, the machinery, the equipment that industry is using, and these relationships exist, and you work with colleges and you see this in real time. Sorry. When it comes to the other side of this idea of the ability to think,
Yep.
and from an institution point of view, we're still have been and always continue to be in the business of teaching students how to think.
Yep.
And I think what has happened is that with the explosion of internet, where all the knowledge was suddenly so much easier to get hold of, I think society has lost its focus on what's the purpose of education, of higher education. And there was this assumption that education is about giving you knowledge rather than teaching you how to think.
How to think.
And I think now with the emergence of machine learning and generative AI, I think higher education institutions are really just getting a wake-up call to remind society what is the purpose of higher education. It is to teach students how to think, not what to think. And now we are just kind of getting reawakened to the fact that our value proposition kind of got lost in time.
Yeah.
From we can probably pin it down to the 90s, right? Like the emergence of internet,
Yeah.
right? So for the last, say, let's call it 30 years,
Yeah.
higher education was slowly getting the place of higher education got eroded
Yeah.
with this question of are you in the business of teaching knowledge, or are you in the business of teaching how to think?
Yep.
And now we can't escape it anymore. We have to, go back to basics and remind people in higher education and people in society and people in government and people in industry, what is the purpose of higher education? It is predominantly to teach people how to think and how to think well.
Yeah.
What the knowledge is, the knowledge keeps it changing, and it just changes faster, right? But
Yeah.
if you know how to think, you're gonna use that skill regardless.
100%. And that's such a unique, that's actually the first time I've heard someone say that perspective. So thanks for sharing that, because it couldn't be more important now for students to be able to, and anyone really in the profession to be able to think, because these machines are getting smarter and better and more efficient. So if we can really be able to think outside of the box, and thinking though, I think that goes hand in hand. And one thing I've been really obsessed with, and it's part of my job, but realizing this more, is the EQ skills as well. So
Absolutely.
you have this ability to think, but you also have to have this ability to speak and speak fluently, and work in team manners, and really have these social skills to help differentiate. Can you speak a
Yeah.
little bit about your opinion on the importance of EQ skills now more than ever, or like human skills just in general?
Yeah, no, and this is such a good point. Um, well, let's, just for the sake of people watching this, let's make a distinction and define what we mean when we say EQ, right? Um, so when we think about intelligence,
Yeah.
right? And you said, machines are getting smarter. And to me, that's kind of stating the obvious. What's not obvious is not the question of smart, but a question of wisdom.
Yes.
And so I like to, I picked up this distinction years ago, right? Like, being smart is mostly about knowing stuff.
Yep.
Being wise is knowing what is relevant in any particular time. How to use your knowledge is your wisdom,
Yes.
not what you know in an absolute way.
Right.
And so machines are getting smarter, but they're not necessarily getting wiser.
Exactly.
And this goes back to, again, this idea of EQ, emotional intelligence. And I actually teach emotional intelligence, or explain emotional intelligence, in my course on leadership, engineering leadership. And the way I explain it is that emotional intelligence is a very high level, complex, let's say, collection of elements. And it starts by you understanding your emotional state and understanding what you're feeling right here in the moment. It's your ability to have empathy, meaning you're aware and conscious of what the other person is feeling.
Yep.
So that's the two distinction, looking at yourself and looking at someone else. And then there's the third layer, which is your ability to control your behavior
Right.
in a way that is aligned with how you feel and how the other person feels. So this sense of control in a purposeful way to make the situation better. Um, and and again, going back to the technology and the impact of technology, I think using technology as a medium for communication
Yeah.
has the danger of kind of sanitizing us from the need to develop emotional intelligence, because there is no facial expression when you write a text. And when you write an email, the text doesn't have body language.
Exactly.
And we need to be a bit more purposeful. But at the same time, the flip side of it is we also want to make sure that we don't think that an email replaces personal communication.
Exactly.
So I think we need to, again, going back to basic and understanding that if you have a tool such a text, such as an email, it's to serve a purpose. But relationship with the other person is the backdrop of everything,
Yeah.
and so being mindful of that.
Well, relationship, and I think like when I say if I see you in person or I'm having this conversation, we have
Mm,
like an aura as well, right? So we're talking, but if we're talking on text, we don't have that innate feeling of being with someone and feeling their I guess energy,
yep,
and
yep,
feeling that communication, and it's, I think, along with what you're saying, that's so huge versus if I'm sending you an email, so emails can be perceived in so many different ways, right, depending on how you read the email. So I think you're bringing up a really good point of the importance of that human connection.
yeah. We've played around with the InStage platform,
Mhm.
you've attended some of the entrepreneurship stuff that I've done. And networking is a great example because we always
Yeah,
tell students network, network, network. And there's always this hesitation because of the human connection.
yeah,
Um, and I always have to explain to students that networking, you can't think of networking as something transactional.
no,
It's about building relationships. It's
yep,
about creating, not creating, it's about understanding that you have to physically show up to where people who you might be able to build a relationship with are always there as well.
yeah,
Um, and so it's the same idea as using technology. We can't we can't replace human relationships with technology. Technology is just a tool.
yeah,
And it's funny. I used to listen to a podcast that it got rebranded, but it used to be called Pessimist Archives,
okay,
and it's called now Built for Tomorrow, and it's by what's his name, Jason Pfeiffer, who's the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine also.
yeah,
And Pessimist Archive had a very clear focus on how society responds when we have new technologies.
yep,
And I remember the episode on, the fact that people were lamenting when the telegraph was invented, and people said society will crumble because people won't need to interact person to person. They can just
right,
send a telegram, and people won't know how to interact with people face to face. And young people won't be able to find a husband or a wife, and family infrastructure will just collapse because people won't be able to create families.
yeah,
And the same narrative happened again when the telephone was created, and the same thing is happening again, and when the email was created, and now we're hearing it again, and it's the same alarmist
yeah,
bells. However, we do see that there's change in how people find more or less relevance in certain tools. So
yeah,
if I tell students, I had a student on a project to try and get employers of our alumni at the school, and I basically asked them to cold call employers. And
oh,
thought of cold calling, the a secretary, right, or admin
yeah,
assistant that answers a phone,
yes,
a perfect stranger, and say, "Hi, this is so
yes,
who am I can I talk to?"
yes,
Seems so unnatural, right? Because we default to I need to send an email to somebody. The idea of
yeah,
calling somebody and say, "Can I speak with so and so?" It just foreign. Um, so we have to be mindful of the fact that the default technology of the day is creating some biases from what we think is appropriate
yeah,
or not.
I
Uh,
agree.
so,
Okay, well, so we have about 5 minutes left. I feel like
sure.
I could talk to you all day long, like for
Oh, we should do
hours.
another one of those. Yeah.
But I thought we'd do a fun little segment. We're down to 4 minutes, so I'm going to get this up and going. I want us to ask the machine, aka David. We're going to bring David on the screen now. We're going
Hi,
to ask,
David.
I'm going to let you think of a question you want to ask him. We have about 4 minutes, so I'm going to get that up. We're going to ask him anything. I had
Okay.
something else planned, but we've kind of ran out of time. So, okay. So quickly here, I had why didn't entrepreneurs not get the first sale? Is there any burning questions you have for David right now in the next 4 minutes that you would love to ask the machine?
Do you know the trolley
Do you
ethical question? Do you know
no
that?
no
No? Okay. If you see a trolley speeding down the tracks, about to inevitably hit a group of people,
yeah
and you can flick a switch to uh, avert it to a secondary track
yeah
that will only kill one person, will
it
you
worked.
flick the switch?
Okay, why don't we ask, okay, what about something just quickly as being, technology and leaders in the industry? Is
Yeah.
there some sort of question we can
Hmm.
ask David about, my mind's going towards that cold calling and entrepreneurship and that like real hustle. Is there something or some tip that someone watching that we could ask that they might be able to get some tips?
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna put a controversial one.
Okay.
Um, is the cover letter dead?
Cover letter dead. Okay, so we'll make David cheeky. Let's make him playful for us. So let me generate this. Okay, we got about 3 minutes, Lon. So he'll introduce himself. I'll tell him you're here with me and you're going to ask him that question.
Okay.
And hopefully I hit audio. We'll find out really soon. Let's see David's opinion, everybody.
You know,
There he
between
comes. He's getting his
between
coffee.
between teaching professional skills and ethics, there's so many intriguing questions we can ask.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll start off with this and then we'll see if he okay.
Hey there. How's your day going?
Hi, David. I'm here with my colleague Alon, and we have a burning question for you right now.
Hey there, Alone. I'm all ears. What's the burning question?
Hi, David. If I'm applying for a job straight out of university, should I include a cover letter or is it just a waste of time?
Great question. What kind of tech jobs are you aiming for, and have you heard any specific feedback about cover letters in your field?
I have no idea. It's a black box. I send them and I never hear back.
That's frustrating. Do you think the lack of response is related to not including a cover letter, or is there something else at play here?
I'm not sure. I'm hoping you can help me enlighten myself.
I'd be happy to help you navigate this. Have you considered reaching out to any recruiters or professionals in your field to get their perspective on cover letters and the job application process?
Well, David, I thank you so much, but we only had one burning question for you, but Alon and I might jump back on at some point and ask you a bunch of questions for fun.
It was great chatting with you, and I look forward to your fun bunch of questions in the future. Take care.
Thank you, David. Have a good day. This is my day a lot. I have way too much fun talking to machines. But he's David. He's not a machine. He likes to drink coffee, he tells me.
It made me curious because my question kind of stumped David, and I wasn't sure if it's because the question is like overwhelming to the extent that he needs more than the 10 seconds, or is it because the perception of the question makes him want to
Because
stall?
Alon asked him a question.
Mhm.
It was such a good question. He's like legit stumped about what's going on here. What's this?
Uh,
Why did I get asked such a good question?
I have to say that the pause, to me, the most interesting part of that conversation was the pause, because it makes it feel so human.
I know.
Yeah, it's because you don't expect, right? Like from a machine, it's like a calculator, right? If I punch in 1 + 1 and I get 2 instantaneously, it fails to
It
build.
sounds like you had a lot of fun. If you have more questions in the future, feel free to
Sorry,
join.
David.
Take care.
Moved on. Yeah. But if you ask your kid, when your child is old enough and you ask them what's 1 + 1, and
Yeah,
you can see them working on it,
yeah,
it really builds that relationship, right? You
it's
can
true.
empathize. You feel back about how I felt when I was trying to answer a hard question. You're looking at their facial expression. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what makes the human experience.
Exactly.
And that was gold.
Yeah,
That
I
was just
know,
gold.
and that's what we're seeing. That's what we're seeing. If you can have these safe places to develop the skills that we're talking about and the thinking, like you asked him such a great question, and that's an example of a safe place someone could go in and just talk and think and have potential answers. I mean, that's how to use tools properly when you can, also practice the other part that we talked about, which is networking and communicating and EQ and all that kind of stuff. So no, that was really cool. I would love to get a group of like educators in a room, and we'll put like all these characters up and we can challenge them and see who's right.
And I already have a new idea for using David for my course. So we'll
Okay.
have to follow up on that in time.
Awesome. Yeah, well, you haven't met Nina yet. She's good. But well, thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I always appreciate it. And it was really great to see you.
It was awesome to see you, and every time I see your platform, I'm just speechless by how advanced, leaps of absolute amazement. And I told this to you many times before, that to me the biggest value for these simulations is how strong the emotional response is.
Yeah.
And I genuinely felt it. And it literally boggles my mind that I can get such an emotional response from talking to a virtual machine learning avatar. So kudos
Well,
on you.
thank you so much. And I have VIP access to that specific link. So if you want to, bounce some ideas off David, let me know. I'll send it over to you.
Sounds good.
Thank
Okay.
you. And we'll talk soon.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care.
Bye for now.